Look closely at these broken stones. They are the bones of a giant. Once, this giant held the whole world in its hands. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. We are looking back across time. We are looking at the greatest empire the Western world had ever seen. They called it Rome. It felt eternal. Around the year 117 AD, Rome was at its peak. It stretched from the wet hills of Scotland to the hot sands of Syria. 60 million people lived under its laws. One emperor ruled them all. It was a machine of massive power. It seemed too big to ever fail. But history tells us a secret. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. We often ask who killed Rome. Was it barbarians? Was it bad luck? Today, we ask a different question, a harder question. Did Rome kill itself? Was its own ambition a slow poison? Let us look at the evidence. Rome was built on a simple idea, more. It always needed more. More land, more people, more glory. This desire was a fire that never went out. For hundreds of years, this system worked. The Roman army was a perfect weapon. They marched out, they conquered new lands, they defeated foreign kings. War was very profitable. The army brought back mountains of gold. They brought back art. Most importantly, they brought back slaves. Millions of people were enslaved. They did the hard work. They farmed the fields, they dug in the mines. This free labor made Rome incredibly rich. The city of Rome became a monster. It consumed everything. Grain from Egypt, oil from Spain, wine from Gaul. All roads led here. All wealth flowed here. But this system had a fatal flaw. It only worked as long as the empire was growing. It needed a constant supply of new victims. Eventually, the winning stopped. They ran out of rich lands to conquer. To the north were dark forests and fierce warriors. To the east were vast deserts. The borders froze. The river of stolen gold dried up. But the costs of running the empire did not stop. In fact, the costs got higher. The army was huge. It was expensive. Soldiers needed to be paid. If they were not paid, they revolted. They chose their own emperors. Chaos followed. To pay the soldiers, the emperors cheated. They made coins with less silver. The money became worthless. Prices for food skyrocketed. People panicked. The economy began to die. The state demanded taxes in grain because their own money was no good. The burden on the people became crushing. But it was not just money they ran out of. Rome's ambition attacked the physical world itself. They treated the earth like an enemy to be conquered. They needed wood for everything, to heat their famous baths, to smelt metal for weapons, to build houses for millions. They cut down entire forests. Hillsides were left bare. The rain washed the soil away. Good land turned into swamps. Swamps spread disease. To feed the massive city, they farmed the land too hard, especially in North Africa. They sucked the nutrients from the soil. The granary of the empire turned into dust. They created deserts where farms used to be. The earth could no longer support their ambition. Then there was the human cost. The soul of Rome was hollowed out. In the beginning, Rome's strength was the free farmer. These men fought in the wars. They returned to work their small plots of land. They had a stake in the future. They were patriots. But the influx of wealth changed everything. Rich generals bought huge areas of land. They used the new floods of slaves to farm it. The small free farmer could not compete with slave labor. They lost their land. They lost their livelihood. They drifted to the city of Rome. They became the mob, a massive unemployed population. They had no property. They had no purpose. They were angry and hungry. To keep them quiet, the emperor gave them free food and brutal entertainment, bread and circuses. It was a bribe to stop a riot. The independent spirit of Rome died. The people became dependent on the state. The state became terrified of the people. It was a trap. And still the emperors built. They needed to show their power. They built things of staggering size, things the world had never seen. Giant bathhouses draped in marble, arenas that held 50,000 people, palaces that covered entire hills. They were magnificent, but they were also vanity projects. They consumed vast amounts of tax money. They used labor that could have been used for defense. It was spending for show while the foundation was cracking. It was a desperate attempt to prove that Rome was still great. By the later years, the burden became too heavy. The glorious infrastructure began to fail. The famous roads were not repaired. The aqueducts that brought clean water to the city started to leak. The great walls were left unmanned. There was no money left to fix them. The empire had become too complex. It required too much energy to keep running. When the energy ran out, the machine stopped. The outer shell looked strong for a long time, but the inside was hollow. It had spent its environmental capital. It had spent its social capital. When the end finally came, it was not a sudden thunderclap. It was a long, slow slide into darkness, a gradual unraveling. Yes, barbarian tribes pushed against the borders. They migrated in vast numbers. They sacked the city. They delivered the final blow. But they were pushing against a rotting door. The structure was already collapsing under its own weight. Rome had defeated itself. The cost of ambition was everything they had. They built a world that was unsustainable. They traded their future for a glorious present. Rome did not die because it was weak. It died because it tried to be too strong, for too long, at too high a price. Look again at the ruins. They are not just stones. They are a warning about the true cost of wanting the world.